So at the beginning of this year, I had a miscarriage, and I've never had a miscarriage before. And I have been procrastinating making this video because it's been really hard for me to talk about, but I really wanted to make this video because there are a bunch of things that I wish I had known about miscarriage and just like what happens and what can happen, and also just bringing awareness about miscarriages and normalizing it and normalizing the struggles around it. So if you're new, I'm Kelly Hale. I'm a content creator. I now have a son who is going to be 2 next year. Basically, I'm just going to tell the story of what happened with the miscarriage and what things I wish I had known. This will be really great to watch if you are, you know, planning to try to ever be pregnant, or obviously if you've had a miscarriage, then, you know, just having someone else to relate to. Hopefully you can find some comfort in that. I think that was the biggest thing that helped me, was just knowing that I wasn't alone, and the fact that I had people that had shared that they had miscarriages with me. I've been procrastinating making this video because obviously it's really hard to talk about. Loss is really hard to talk about. Infant loss, miscarriages, that's all. It's just difficult topic, but I think it's important to talk about it eventually, and it's important for your own healing. But I definitely needed to process everything before I spoke about it. In the last few months, it's been hard for me to find good times to film videos. There's probably going to be some noise in the background because my son is playing in the other room. It's just hard to fit things into a toddler's, 2-hour of nap, to fit everything in, and they just have become very inconsistent lately getting these naps in. So finding times to record has been hard. So that's both parts. It's like I've been wanting now to record it for a couple months. I felt ready, and then just the challenges of life and being a mom. So I'm going to talk about miscarriage today and my whole experience with having a miscarriage this year and what I wish I knew before having a miscarriage. If you hear that noise, this video is a little chaotic that I filmed because the last few months, ever since June became like full-on toddler, which is why I have not posted many videos. It's really hard for me to film, and I find myself, I just don't end up filming anything because of this. So it's just like, I will never film this video if I just don't film it in the chaos of like having a toddler running around. So I think half of this video gets out of focus because June was coming in and out of the picture, and then like I wasn't able to refocus the camera, and I just needed to finish filming what I was talking about. So like the second half of the video is out of focus and messed up. So I just think it's important to share, and that's why I'm like, I just have to film it how it is. This toddler running around, I have to film it even though things are out of focus because I just won't get it done. And the winter time, and so like it gets really dark really early, and like there's so much like clouds, there's just less sunny days. It's just like harder to film in the winter time for me. So just the combination of everything is making it like, I'll never get this filmed if I just don't accept like the imperfect quality that's gonna be. So just bear with me. I hope you get some just helpful insight from this, whether you are trying to be pregnant or if you've gone through miscarriage or any sort of loss, just finding some just feeling less alone in all of it. So now I'll get to the video. So basically, when my son was 10 months, almost 11 months old, we found out that I was pregnant, and we were not trying at all, not trying to have another baby anytime soon, but I ended up pregnant anyways, and we totally embraced it, and we were excited. We told all of my family, we told friends. Even though we were well aware of like it was very early to start telling people, I just feel like it's hard not to share with people. It's hard to conceal the fact when you're pregnant to either your family members or the people you're around a lot, especially if it's anyone who's already seen you pregnant before or has been pregnant. Like it's easy to tell. So it's just like hard to hide. But I feel like when I got pregnant with my son, again, I got pregnant very easily again with him. I was so aware that 1 in 4 women have a miscarriage, and super common. I had multiple friends who had had miscarriages because I had then had a healthy child in a full-term pregnancy and I hadn't had a miscarriage before. It's like I almost felt less prepared. Like the first time I felt more prepared for the possibility, and the second time I felt less prepared. And that's when it happened. Like super shocked, but we started telling, you know, family and friends, and obviously we're only telling people that we would then have the conversation and tell them like, oh, actually I'm not pregnant anymore. And like that's the whole issue with it, is that it's like to the outside, it's in the people that you've told, it's just that you're suddenly not pregnant and no one else is experiencing what the miscarriage is actually like and what that's actually going through and like the actual loss you're experiencing. Like all they see on the outside is like, especially, you know, you're generally like not showing with a lot of miscarriages. So it's like you have very little signs that you're pregnant. It's just on the outside, it just looks like you're suddenly not pregnant and just overlooked of like the entire process of losing that pregnancy and losing that child. You know, when you Google miscarriage, it basically says it's like a heavy period. And granted, maybe in the first couple weeks, if you have a super early miscarriage, like if you're 4, 5, 6 weeks pregnant, that might be the case. It might just be like a very heavy pregnancy. That's also what I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for basically to be going through giving a very early birth. I was not prepared to go through labor, be bleeding for weeks, like on top of the actual miscarriage. I basically had, you know, a week and a half of bleeding leading up to it, and then went through literally labor and birth in one day. And I have the awareness of it now after going through full-term pregnancy. Of the bleeding afterwards, I mean, the process was, it was so similar to like having a full-term pregnancy and having a full-term birth, except you don't have a baby at the end of it. So that part was so jarring to me to not realize. Like, basically, I'll back up now. So we found out I was pregnant, you know, like 5 weeks or something. Pregnancy test, you know, went to the doctor, we did an ultrasound, everything looked great. Everything looked really great at the ultrasound. A little disillusioned because with my son, I never had an ultrasound or got seen by a doctor until I was 17 weeks pregnant with him. Dune, you wanna say hi? You wanna say hi?
Good.
You wanna say hi? Look in there. Say hi. Look. Dune, can you say hi? Look, over there. You say hi? Can you wave? Yeah! You're so cute. So, at 6 weeks, I went to the doctor, and we had an ultrasound, and we already were hearing the heartbeat, and everything looked super good. Everything looked super good, and everything looked good, and my uterus looked healthy, the eggs looked healthy. The thing that I realize now that was weird is that according to my period cycle, I would have been further along, but their measurements told me I was like 2 or 3 weeks earlier than I was. Or like, it was like I was supposed to be 6 or 7 weeks, and they were telling me I was only 4 weeks based on my measurement. So that was a warning sign that I didn't know would be a red flag. Like I should be farther along. This, you know, is it right? That was something now that I reflect on as like, okay, that was a sign. Yes, that's my name. You're a silly guy. Yeah. So then when I was around 8 weeks, according to them, which was probably more like 9 or 10 weeks, is I started having cramping. It was like on a Sunday, cramping, bleeding. What's up? You're silly. You're silly. You're so cute. I started having cramping and I started bleeding. And I'd had nausea for 2 weeks. You want to say something? Yeah. And my nausea disappeared 3 days later after the bleeding started. So the bleeding had started and the cramping started, and I scheduled an appointment and we got another ultrasound, even though I wasn't supposed to. You're so silly. Even though I wasn't supposed to. And when we scheduled, and I went in and saw my doctor and got the ultrasound, and she was like, hi. She said there was absolutely no growth and change in size, and that was a sign of a miscarriage, or like a red flag for miscarriage. Yes. And then paired with the fact I started bleeding was like, okay, miscarriage is about to happen. What's up? So a week and a half later, so I basically was like bleeding. It felt like, so that part was like I was having a period. I was like cramping and bleeding for like a week and a half. And then, so I like thought that was the miscarriage process, and online it says you'll have like blood clots, like, okay. So I thought that was the process. What's up? What's up? And what actually happened was that I had all that for a week and a half, and then I actually, that wasn't like the miscarriage itself. That was like the precursor to the miscarriage. A week and a half later, I went into labor. I started having contractions, and it was very horrible, very painful. The whole process was about 6 hours. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't control anything. It was very different. It's very different, I guess, than... What are you so silly? Very different than if you're having, I guess, a full-term birth where you're having the contractions. The difference was with these contractions, it's like with every contraction I was having, then lots of stuff was coming out. So different than like a normal full-term healthy baby birth. And it's like I couldn't control it, and like I couldn't be in public because it's like I had stuff coming out of me. And I was in labor too. Yeah. Silly. So I pretty much had to be in the shower for like hours. The whole scene is just like very graphic. I was like, basically at the time we were actually in Puerto Rico, and we were like leaving the beach or going to the beach or something at the time this was happening. And so we had to like completely ditch and like go home, and it was just like a whole mess that was happening like in the car. Like I was literally having the contractions and everything's going everywhere, and it was awful. We had to pull over so many times, and then I just spent the rest of the day in the shower for several hours until it was all done. And I knew it was done because then I recognized when my placenta came out, because especially since I'd already had birth, like I was aware of like more aware of like the process of then like my placenta comes out afterwards, and I could recognize the placenta. Other thing that surprised me, besides the fact of like literally going through labor and like going through all this, and I guess because of the fact that I did this all at home, I did this without any sort of medication. My doctor was like calling me, and I guess they want me to come in, and now I realize that like a lot of you're silly. Practices maybe want to control the situation and maybe either give you a pill to expedite it, which would make sense to me, or they want to do surgery to take care of it for you. But yeah, so mine was completely natural, so I don't know what the norm is. I can tell that my practice was trying to get me in to maybe like handle things differently versus letting it happen naturally. So I don't know enough about that process, but this is my experience. I didn't expect it to be so painful because it wasn't a full-term birth. But like the contractions were literally horribly painful. It was like waves. Contractions were just as were super painful that early on. Even though it like, I wouldn't say it was like painful, the process of everything coming out. That itself, it just felt like my body was like, I just had no control. It just felt like the pain was all in the contractions, and then everything would come out after that, and that part wasn't painful. It was, but the contractions were painful. So I was just shocked at like how painful that was. I think what kicked it into action is I surfed for like 3 hours that morning. I didn't know that if you are starting to have a miscarriage or like 2 weeks after, I didn't know this until later, that like you're not supposed to be in bodies of water because your cervix is more open. It's the same thing as like when you have a full-term pregnancy, like you're not supposed to be in like a hot tub or a bath or swimming or something. because your cervix is more open and that you are at the increased risk of infection. So I didn't know that. So do not do what I did. The physical activity of, you know, surfing for 3 hours kind of kicked me into labor, just like if you were having a full-term labor. I had postpartum depression with my son, and I was having similar, you know, feelings, but it's just different, like after the miscarriage, just because of the loss of it, just the whole loss, like you're losing a baby. That was hard, but I feel like because then I was spending a lot of time outside and I was quickly like exercising, and I just had already put into place a really healthy routine that I had started to, that had helped me with postpartum depression. I was like already in the groove of that. I feel like that helped me like not have that, because I know that that's also a possibility. Like your body is still going through all the hormones just as if you have a full-term birth, and it's like this influx of everything. So that is like a possibility to go into a postpartum depression even with a miscarriage. And also the fact of like you literally had a loss too. Yes, it just would have been helpful for me to have known just the possibilities and awareness of everything. But hopefully also if you are going through this, like maybe you just feel less alone and how hard it is. And you know, we were bummed that, you know, we became hopeful that, right, that our son was going to have a sibling and that we were going to have a second child. I was not ready to have 2 under 2, but I welcomed the challenge of it. And then it's like, now that's no longer a possibility. Like that's just not going to be our story. So yeah, I just, that's pretty much it. I feel like the best thing that helped me after the miscarriage is I just firmly decided that I was going to focus on my health. And I was just going to focus on being the best mom that I could to my son, that I was going to be the healthiest that I could. And I put into place all these new healthy routines and just a healthier mindset, and just really focused on my health and like becoming super, super healthy. And I also feel like I wasn't in a healthy place then. I had really struggled to lose my pregnancy weight. I was still very heavy. It's like I had like gained the pregnancy weight and then like it traded for like actually just being overweight. And so I just really focused on my health. And I just had so much gratitude for literally having a healthy child already. Like I was like, wow, literally having a healthy child is such a miracle. Like having a full-term healthy pregnancy is such a miracle. And I obviously had some struggles with the pregnancy with Dune. I had a marginal cord insertion. I have a whole video where I talk about it with his birth story, and I talk about in his birth story the marginal cord insertion that I had, which impacted his growth. So there was that stress and anxiety, but I just felt so much gratitude of like what a miracle and a blessing it is just to already have a healthy child. And I was also really grateful that when I was pregnant with Dune, that I treated that pregnancy as if I would never be pregnant again. And I embraced every single moment and cherished everything. I took so many pictures. I just fully enjoyed every single day as if obviously we would love to have another child. But you just, I guess that's what this miscarriage taught me, is like, it's, I don't know, it's just like after you already have a healthy child, it's just easy to think that you'll have more, but you just don't know what's gonna happen. And so I just felt really grateful that like I totally embraced my pregnancy, was really present in it, and present through like all of his like babyhood because like you just never know, that could, you know, even though you might want other children, maybe that is like the only time it happens. So the miscarriage taught me a lot about that. Grateful for what I have and what we have. And I also started, the last thing I did after the miscarriage is I not just focused on my health, but I also focused on my marriage, which, you know, it's easy to think you're going to focus on your child you already have, but we focus more like on our marriage, and, you know, our health came first, and then, you know, our relationship. And I feel like those two things like then allow you to be the best parent that you can to your child. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. Also just good insight to know if you're, want to get pregnant in the future, or maybe you feel less alone if you've also gone through a miscarriage. Feel free to leave me any comments or questions just about any of it. I'm happy to answer anything. And I have some more exciting videos coming up in the sort of motherhood space, some fun stuff for Dune. Make sure you're subscribed. I also share lots of creator and remote work tips because I do work from home as a mom, as a creator, and a designer. So I share a lot of tips about that. All like our family adventures. We also have like a vlog channel for all of our like family travel. My husband and I have traveled to almost 50 countries. I'm traveling before Dune and we have lots of fun travels coming up. So make sure you're following us over there, and I will see y'all